She died 2 days before turning 80, but insiders say she wasn't done telling her story. And now that she's gone, they're the ones talking. Because behind the glitz, the poster-perfect smile, and that unforgettable blonde bombshell persona was a woman hiding secrets bigger than the studio lot she once lit up. They called her Jennifer Marlowe in Cincinnati, the sexy secretary who defied dumb blonde tropes and made men feel dumber just by walking into the room. But Loni Anderson didn't just play smart. She was smart, sharp-tongued, media-savvy, and allegedly one of the few actresses who knew how to work the press and play the Hollywood game like chess. But even chess queens get cornered, and that's exactly what happened when she fell for Hollywood's golden boy, Burt Reynolds. The two were a tabloid fantasy, the heartthrob with the mustache and the platinum-haired TV goddess. Their whirlwind romance became front-page gossip overnight. Photo shoots, interviews, movie premieres. She even starred in Stroker Ace, a project Burt handpicked just to work with her. On the surface, they were the picture of 80s perfection, but insiders say it was more like a soap opera behind closed doors. Because here's the thing no one wanted to admit at the time. Burt and Loni's relationship was a PR goldmine, and allegedly a private catastrophe. Insiders say they fought constantly. Loni's memoir later hinted at emotional abuse, extravagant spending to escape the tension, and long nights filled with silent dinners and screaming matches. Burt, for his part, once accused her of bleeding him dry, claiming she demanded expensive gifts, homes, and luxury everything. But her friends say it was the least he could do after the way he treated her. But wait, it didn't stop there. When the divorce finally hit in the early 90s, it was ugly. Think headlines, lawsuits, unpaid child support, and Loni dragging receipts into the daylight. At one point, Burt allegedly told interviewers she ruined him financially. But fans who watched Loni's interviews say she was calm, composed, dangerous in her restraint. And here's where it gets real. Because after all that noise, Loni went quiet. She stepped out of the spotlight, gave fewer interviews, and focused on raising her son, Quentin, whom she adopted with Burt. Some say she was rebuilding. Others believe she was plotting a second act. But even in silence, the whispers followed her. She never really healed, one friend hinted anonymously. She just got better at hiding it. And this is where it turns messy. Just as fans were starting to celebrate her legacy, her brains, her beauty, her barrier-breaking roles, rumors surfaced that Loni had been quietly planning a return, not in front of the camera, but behind it. Allegedly, she was working on a memoir sequel, maybe even a streaming docuseries. One source even claimed she was in talks with a major network to finally set the record straight. But now, she's gone, and the project? Mysteriously shelved. After her divorce from Burt, you'd think the drama would die down. But Loni Anderson's post-fame years were anything but quiet. Behind the scenes, she became one of Hollywood's most misunderstood figures. Fans remembered the smile, the curves, the perfect hair. But casting directors, they saw something else entirely. To them, Loni wasn't a multi-dimensional performer. She was a brand, a blonde bombshell in a tight dress, frozen in the 70s. And no matter how many interviews she did or charity events she showed up to, the roles stopped coming in. She'd proven her comedic chops, her dramatic edge, even her hosting skills, but the phone didn't ring, not like it used to. Hold up, because it gets even messier. Multiple insiders claim Loni was this close to landing a major voice role in a Disney film in the 90s. Rumor has it she auditioned for multiple characters and crushed them. But allegedly, execs dismissed her without a callback. Why? Because they said, quote, audiences can't unsee the swimsuit poster. Imagine being denied a dream job, not because you can't do it, but because your own image is too iconic to escape. But Loni didn't stop there. She pivoted to writing, speaking, and advocacy, especially around COPD, a disease that had ravaged her family. In interviews, she talked about growing up in a house filled with cigarette smoke, about her dad's struggle, about why she never picked up the habit herself. And for years, she quietly championed awareness and health education. But then, whispers started to swirl. Online sleuths noticed something strange in her final public appearances. Her voice? Softer. Her breathing? Slightly strained. Some even claimed She was looking frailer than usual. Despite always appearing glam, she told reporters she was in good health, just taking it easy. But fans weren't convinced. Because just months before her death, she was allegedly spotted meeting with a ghostwriter at a Beverly Hills cafe. The meeting was short, less than an hour, but the speculation was immediate. Was she working on the untold story of her career? A memoir? A private confession? Some say she'd been keeping notes for years. A hidden journal, a folder of saved letters, receipts, names, timelines, everything. But now, it's vanished. And then, the internet exploded. The official story says Loni passed after a prolonged illness, surrounded by family. But no specific cause was ever released publicly. Some believe it was related to complications from COPD. Others, more conspiracy-minded fans, claim something was off. Because here's the thing. Her passing was announced by family, not her rep. No official statement from any studio. No mention of that rumored docuseries she was supposedly producing. And despite decades in Hollywood, the tributes, surprisingly tame. Short quotes, basic condolences. No deep dives, no revelations. And yet, behind closed doors, her friends are finally talking. Morgan Fairchild posted a heartfelt tribute, calling Loni the kindest, funniest, most gracious soul in the business. But buried in that sweet message was a curious detail. There were so many things Loni never got credit for. Fans immediately latched onto that line. What didn't she get credit for? Was it roles she secretly helped cast? Scripts she punched up without credit? Or something more personal, like shielding her son from the industry's uglier side? You're not ready for what came next. Because one of her former assistants, who worked with her during the Burt era, went viral for a TikTok claiming Loni once told her, "The only thing worse than being underestimated is being remembered for the wrong story." And suddenly, the internet had a new theory. Was Loni Anderson trying to reclaim her legacy all along, but just ran out of time? For someone who spent her life in front of cameras, Loni Anderson was terrifyingly good at disappearing. In the years after her primetime fame faded, she mastered the art of controlled visibility. Red carpet here, charity event there, but never too much, never overexposed. It was like she wanted to remind people she was still here without giving them anything real. But behind the curated image, insiders say she was dealing with betrayal that cut deeper than any headline ever could. Because while Burt Reynolds' name was plastered across every article about her love life, there was someone else who'd been in her orbit far longer and who may have hurt her just as much. Her first husband, Bruce Hasselberg. He was her high school sweetheart. They got married when she was just 19, divorced by 21. For years, the story was simple. Young love, gone too soon. But in her later interviews, Loni dropped hints that it wasn't just immaturity, it was control. She once said, "I had to learn how to be on my own because no one else would let me." Some fans believe Bruce held more power over Loni's early career than anyone realized, that he discouraged her from acting, that he resented her ambition, and that even after their divorce, his influence lingered behind the scenes. Allegedly, he maintained quiet connections in local Minnesota politics and business, ties that could have helped or hurt her depending on how things ended. But wait. That's not the only ghost in Loni's past. Her second marriage to actor Ross Bickel was practically scrubbed from history. They were married during her rise to fame, but you'd never know it from the press. Photos? Scarce. Quotes? Non-existent. It's almost like they agreed to a media blackout before it was even a thing. Some speculate the silence was strategic. Ross allegedly wanted no part of Loni's growing fame. Others say their relationship fizzled when she realized he didn't believe in her star potential. And then came husband number 4, Bob Flick, the so-called normal one, a folk musician, far removed from Hollywood. They met in the 60s, reconnected decades later, and married in 2008. To the public, he was her happy ending, but insiders whisper something different. A hairstylist who worked with Loni for years claimed she saw a shift after the wedding. Less sparkle, more stress. She reportedly canceled appearances without explanation, rescheduled shoots, and once allegedly broke down in tears in the makeup chair, saying, "I just want to be seen for who I really am." And this is where it turns chilling. Because in her final months, Loni reportedly started reaching out to old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Former co-stars, makeup artists, even a journalist who'd covered her divorce 2 decades ago. Each conversation ended the same way. There's more to the story. More to what story exactly? One anonymous source close to the family claimed Loni had been documenting her life privately. Audio tapes, handwritten notes, even old voicemails. She was allegedly compiling everything she never got to say. Not for a book, not for TV, for her son. Quentin Reynolds has never spoken publicly about his childhood, but people close to the family say he was fiercely protective of his mother and haunted by the public drama she endured. One friend claimed he once told her, "If anyone knew what she gave up for me, they'd never believe the headlines." And then came the twist no one expected. A day after Loni's death was announced, a locked box was reportedly delivered to a private legal firm in Los Angeles. The contents? Unknown. But the timing? Too perfect. Fans immediately began to speculate. Was it a last will? A hidden memoir? A truth bomb waiting to drop? Because if Loni Anderson was anything, she was strategic. She knew how to wait, how to watch, and how to make a scene without ever being in the room. Loni Anderson didn't just leave behind a career. She left behind a legend. And like most legends, it's complicated. For every fan who remembers her as the glamorous, witty star of WKRP in Cincinnati, there's another who only remembers the drama, the marriages, the headlines, the scandals. But the truth, if we ever get all of it, may be far less about scandal and more about sacrifice. Because as tributes poured in, one detail kept slipping through the cracks. Loni never got her redemption arc. Hollywood loves a comeback, a third act, a raw interview, a viral memoir. But Loni, she stayed quiet. She kept her dignity. And for that, she was written off. They called her washed up, typecast, past her prime. But what they missed, what they refused to acknowledge, is that Loni Anderson spent decades surviving an industry that wanted to erase her the minute she stopped smiling. And fans? They're starting to catch on. Reddit threads are full of comments like, "Why don't we talk about how much she had to endure?" And "She paved the way for every blonde who wasn't a joke." Even Gen Z TikTokers, who barely knew her name a week ago, are now calling her a trailblazer for looking hot and being smart before it was a thing. But not everyone's singing her praises. Some former colleagues, quietly and without naming names, have hinted at friction. One producer who worked on Nurses in the 90s said Loni could be difficult, but fans were quick to clap back, pointing out how difficult is code for not taking crap from anyone. Others say she burned bridges, demanding respect in rooms that didn't want to give it. And if that's true, good for her. Because this is the part no one talks about. Loni Anderson wasn't difficult. She was disobedient. And in an industry that punishes women for aging, speaking up, or stepping out of line, disobedient women don't get the glossy legacy pieces. They get whispered about, dismissed, forgotten. But here's the thing Loni knew all along. Obedient women don't make history. Disobedient ones become legends. And that's exactly what she did. She turned a sitcom role into a career. She made her image a weapon. She stayed graceful under fire. And when Hollywood tried to silence her, she smiled anyway. A weapon in lipstick. A threat in heels. So now that she's gone, the question isn't just what she left behind. It's what she knew. And why she might have chosen to keep some of those secrets to herself. Because maybe Loni Anderson didn't want to clear her name. Maybe she wanted us to ask questions, to dig deeper, to wonder what we missed. And if that's the case, she succeeded. Because 30 years after her heyday, we're still hanging on every word, still pulling at the threads, still wondering what was real, what was image, and what story she took to the grave. And something tells us we haven't heard the last of her. If you made it this far, you know one thing. Legends don't just fade. They leave echoes. So tell us in the comments, was Loni Anderson protecting her legacy or hiding something bigger? What do you think was in that locked box? And if a secret memoir drops, who do you think she was about to name? Subscribe to Icons Never Die, because we're not just telling stories, we're uncovering what the headlines missed. Hit that bell and you'll never miss a ghost from Hollywood's golden age tapping on the walls again.